Welcome everyone from YouTube. My name is Love, this is Godforge, and thanks a lot for stopping by. In today's video, we will finally have the feedback or my personal feedback for the first round of the Godforge beta. And the beta now is nearly done, the first round, and so I think now is a good time to give you, or to give the devs, my personal feedback and also to talk with you about my goods and the bads that I see at this game right now. But first, let's talk about my general experience and especially the first couple of days, because I was immediately hooked. But I also have to admit that I'm a person who is relatively fast hooked, especially when it comes to gacha games. I really enjoy especially the first days and where everything is new, where you have a lot of progress very fast. This is just something I enjoy so much, and it felt quite rewarding honestly here in Godforge, especially since a lot of dungeons, and I will talk about this later in this video a bit more, but especially since the dungeons were quite challenging, I really enjoyed the fact that they were so challenging, and then it felt quite rewarding for me. So I enjoyed the first couple of days quite a lot. And this is probably one of the main reasons why I just logged in every single day. Because I enjoyed the small progress and sometimes a bit more than just small progress. Also, did I really love the calendar and all those daily login rewards? They felt quite generous, and I really hope that they will keep this for the early access for the main game as well. And I definitely think that this is something that you guys enjoy as well. Good rewards is always something we like to see. And now, before we get into the main core of this video, one other thing that I want to talk about just really quick are heroes, some particular heroes. And if you've watched my other content, you know that my two favorite heroes, without a doubt, are Machao and Li Nao Maja from the rare category. And then from the epic category, damn, I love Inari. She is so strong, especially the combination of those three heroes is just insane. And this is definitely a very good core team for so many different areas, for speed running or for relatively fast running, and also for consistency. And when it comes to legendary heroes, man, Freya, like she was my guaranteed legendary hero, and apart from that I didn't get a single other legendary hero outside of my pity hero, which I will address in another video, and in this video as well for a short period. However, Freya, from the legendary category, she is so strong, and of course she's the only legendary hero that I tested quite a lot. But I can tell you, she is very strong, and she's so cool, such a good addition for pretty much every single team. But yeah, especially the combination of Inari and her ally attack in combination with Machao's and Li Nao Maja's extremely strong A1s, it just fits so perfectly, and it just immediately felt like a very strong combination. And I think this is probably like a team that I build around quite often. Or, on the other hand, I build around Freya. Well, I'm not sure if building around is the right term. It's more like Freya is just someone who fits in every team, or it feels like she fits in every single team. But she was part of every single team as well, so you could say that I've been building my teams kind of around her. And then one final thing that the devs personally asked: is there a hero where I'm hoping to pull next? And this is a question that I want to ask you as well. If you could choose like one legendary hero from all legendary available heroes, who would you pick? And honestly, from the non-eternal heroes, for me it would probably be Quetzalcoatl. Because first, I love those aesthetics, and I know this god from other games as well, and it is always that he is quite cool, honestly, quite interesting. So from aesthetics and from a story, from a lore perspective, I want him, but also from the skills. He has some cool skills. He brings petrification on his A1, and this is already like the best selling point for me. This is already enough. I would love to pull the Quetzalcoatl. I would really love to pull him from the non-Eternals. Now when it comes to the Eternals, this is such a hard question because there are so many cool Eternal heroes. But I think one that I would really love to pull is... where is he? Zeus. Man. When I've been reading his kit, I was not that impressed because those skills are not... it's not too much what is happening. But I think now after playing the beta that this hero is probably very strong. So I would probably go with the Zeus, honestly. And I'm not entirely sure. When it comes to Eternal legendary heroes, there are so many great ones, so I'm not sure about this. But let me know, what do you think? what is the legendary hero, eternal and non-eternal, that you would choose if you were able to choose one particular hero. And then one thing that I wanted to mention just real quick before we get into the main feedback core of today's video, when it comes to rare heroes, I would maybe recommend something like a wishlist system for only rare heroes. Of course, for epic heroes or even legendary heroes, that would also be amazing. But especially for rare heroes, I would love some kind of a wishlist system, because I have the bad feeling in my gut that I will only not be able to pull Machao or Linao Maja once the game is in the early access, once the main game releases. I can already see myself pulling 200, 300 Eternal Soul Stones, Eternal Ether Stones, and not getting a single one of either Machao or Linao Maja. So maybe something like a wishlist system here for rare heroes would be a very cool addition to the game. For various reasons. First, because I would hate to not pull both of those heroes early on, because I like them so much. And also, this could be interesting in the long run, in the long term as well. Because as you can see, I have my Skadi, and she is also a rare eternal hero, already at Inspiration 5. While my Linao Maja, I still have him at Inspiration 0. He is not even at Awakening, sorry, not Inspiration, but Awakening. He is not even at Awakening level 1. So this just shows how bad RNG sometimes can be. And it is absolutely possible that you pull like 10 Skadis in the worst case scenario, and not a single one of the rare heroes that you actually want. So this is why something like a wishlist system for rare heroes maybe could be interesting. In the short term, but also in the long term, to help you awaken your rare heroes. But well, that's it pretty much when it comes to my general experience and a bit shortish feedback from my perspective. And now I want to talk about a bit more in-depth feedback from my point of view. So let's get into this. And by the way, I also gathered a lot of feedback from you guys, which is highly appreciated. And I will talk about your feedback, of course, in today's video, but also I will just show a lot of your feedback within the video. So stay tuned and feel free to comment below about something that you disagree with or that you agree with, or something that I just forgot to add, or if you want to add something, just comment below. But however, let's get into this. First, I want to talk about something that I think is very positive. And by the way, nothing here in this video is in any particular order. I just wrote down a lot of notes for myself and I want to go through all of them in this video. So first, something that I think is a very, very cool thing is the imprint system. The idea of giving your heroes with their weapon a new ability, like a new passive ability, is very, very cool. And it seems like we have access to quite a lot of those imprints. And this is something that I love to see so far. Now, in the first beta, we didn't have so much time to test around with those imprints. And I think especially for PvP, they are going to be extremely interesting because they will open up so many different strategies. And you will face same teams, while everyone could use very different imprints on their heroes and therefore use very different strategies for their teams, even though the team looks pretty much the same. So this is why I have very, very high hopes for the imprint system, and it's definitely one of the things that I like the most about Godforge, and where I see a lot of potential, especially later on. And also now talking about imprints, also of course, when it comes to imprints, there is something that you have to talk about as well. It's the weapon system. And this is also something that I see in a very, very positive way. Because those weapons also, they add a lot of depth to the game. There are quite a lot of different weapons, and also already the blue ones are definitely very usable and quite strong effects. While then a lot of those epic weapons, they seem sometimes a bit niche, but some of those weapons definitely are extremely strong. And I didn't see too many legendary weapons yet. This weapon here, for example, I'm not that impressed honestly by this weapon, but I saw a couple of weapons that had extremely great effects. So I'm not sure how big the power difference here is going to be. I could imagine that it is going to be quite a big power difference. However, I still love the implement of those weapons. This is something that once again adds a lot of depth to the game. A lot of depth that we're not actually able to experience so far. Or we were able to experience it but not as much as I would like to. But this is something that we as well definitely will have time in the second round of the beta. And yeah, I could definitely talk way more about those weapons, and this would have been probably a very good topic for another video, so maybe I will cover this in another video. However, I want to keep the video relatively short if somehow possible, because I have a lot of points to talk about, so let's get to the next point. The bazaar. Honestly, I kind of like the bazaar. I think this is a very cool way, because we have a lot of different access to different equipment, but also to pretty much everything that we need. However, also the bazaar is something quite dangerous, if you want to say so, because I saw a lot of people got caught by this early on. You can spend a lot of your gold here, you can spend pretty much your whole gold here, and the raids, and this is a very bad thing about the bazaar in my opinion, the raids feel extremely bad. I never got something else than green stones here. And you can, in theory, get blue stones here, or I think even the golden stones. So this is something that feels not that good, honestly. It feels not that rewarding. It's not that expensive, and I think, in general, we will talk about the raids in general in just a second as well. But the box of mysteries is something that I quite enjoyed. Every single day to go in the bazaar and go for the box of mysteries. This definitely was a lot of fun, if you want to say so. It gave me a little bit back for my gold, and it felt fair. However, those spirit catches here, for example, they also felt extremely unrewarding. I pretty much always got the lowest possible outcome. Let's get to the next point, the raids. Whatever raids it is, if it is the raids from the bazaar, or if it is the summoning raids, they feel not that rewarding, honestly. I was able to hit pity, and it took me actually pity to get my first and only legendary on this account, apart from the guaranteed one. And this, it felt pretty much like it did with Raid Shadow Legends, if you're familiar. And we will definitely talk about Raid and some other gacha games within this video, here and there, because it is just, I think, very good for feedback to compare a game with other comparable games. And some things here just feel like they are pretty much exactly like with Raid. For example, those summoning raids. They feel extremely unrewarding, and I have to also admit, but this is just my personal point of view, and I think most of you will disagree here. In general, I think this is kind of fine. I don't want to get too many legendaries. Like it feels like very, very rewarding if you get a legendary. I enjoy this way more than summoning 3 or 4 legendaries a week. But I also want to admit this point just real quick, because I feel, and I'm very sure about this, that we will not get as many, I mean this is probably 99% sure, we will not get as many of those ether stones once the early access starts like we did in the beta. This is pretty much obvious, and therefore I can see a lot of people don't summon a single legendary within their first month of playing or so, except for maybe a guaranteed one early on. And this is something, well, it is very, very complicated. As I said, you don't want to give out too many legendary heroes, because then they just don't feel like a big reward. And this is what most of us enjoy this game for, or in general this genre, this kind of game for. We love to get the short kick of dopamine once we get a legendary hero, once we get something very special and strong. And this is also something where I want to talk about in just a second, about the legendary heroes in general. But before, I want to mention one more thing when it comes to the raids, and this is something that I have to admit on a very positive way. It's those echo fragments here. Once you summoned a particular amount of ether stones, you can guarantee yourself a legendary hero, you can choose a legendary hero. And this is something I like quite a lot. This is something very, very cool, and once again it gives you something to work towards too. I would add a bit more than only those 5 heroes, like give us the choice between 10 different heroes. Not because I think those heroes here are not fine or something, but just to give you more to choose of. It just feels more rewarding, and then if we have 5 heroes, it will most likely end up that there is one hero that performs the best. And the one hero, let's just make an example, Ra for example, for instance, and everyone will go for Ra. But I think if we have more than only 5 heroes, like 10 heroes here to choose from, then it gives us more flexibility. And then we have some different heroes for different accounts. And I really hope that later on, not every single account will look the same. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. And this is something where I'm quite optimistic for, honestly. And I think that this is something that they do very good here at Godforge for now. Most of those legendary heroes, they feel very, very different. They do very different things, and for now, I think that actually most of the legendary heroes are very decent. There is not a hero that is absolutely trash, that is absolutely useless, at least from what I can tell so far. And of course, also I have to admit this, it always depends. There are some heroes, some legendary heroes, that seem not to work as intended because they are bugged. And then of course those heroes are absolutely underwhelming, and to summon one of those heroes early on must be quite a bad feeling. But in general, just the design of the legendary heroes feels like the skill design feels very cool. It feels very different, and it's not like every hero is just a reskin of something else. So this is something I want to mention in a very positive way. And also one more positive thing before I want to mention a couple of negative things is that in general it feels like there is quite a lot of different things, quite a lot of different mechanics, skill kits in mechanics and skill kits in this game. Like if we look at the amount of debuffs that we have access to, we have a lot of different debuffs. Now it is not really 48 because often there are just 3 different kinds of the same debuff, 3 different levels of the same debuff, but it still feels like we have quite a lot of different debuffs, some very interesting debuffs, also some very interesting buffs. And now for the buffs, I think it feels a bit more like it is repeating or copying from other games, which is nothing in particular bad, just it is very hard to reinvent something very 100% new. But still, especially for the debuffs, there are some debuffs that feel very interesting for me. And then we also have those disable effects, which some of those disable effects also feel very, very interesting and seem to open up a lot of different strategies. But, and this is something that we don't know yet, we don't know how this is going to end up and where this is going to end up. Maybe most of those debuffs or disable effects are not used at all later on because they are just not performing as good, but this is something only time will tell. I really have high hopes that since we have so many disable and debuff effects, that hopefully we will have a lot of different strategies in PvP, especially in PvP. I personally, like 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't enjoy PvP that much in gacha games, but nowadays I actually really enjoy PvP. And this is why I have so high hopes that PvP in Godforge will have a lot of depth and will enable us to use a lot of different strategies. But of course, only time will tell. And then as I said, it's not only about the skills, but it's also about the mechanics, about the dungeons. Right now, those dungeons are very, very hard, and especially in the first 4 or 5 days, I heard or read this feedback very, very often on all different platforms, that it is too hard and that people don't really progress. But this is something that I personally see in a very, very positive way. Ideally, it takes us very, very long until we are able to farm the final stage of a dungeon. But this is just my personal point of view. But I enjoy grinding, and when every single upgrade gives you some additional possibilities, and when you reach a new stage, then it feels really like a new achievement. This is something that I personally enjoy quite a lot, way more than if everyone is able to farm the highest possible stages after 2 or 3 weeks. But this is once again just my personal point of view, and I can absolutely understand why a lot of people feel a bit demotivated if they have struggled to progress. However, I actually wanted to talk about something else, about the mechanics in general, and especially now for the dungeons here. Not for the Ascension dungeons, they are relatively easy, while they are also not too easy, honestly, especially the later stages where you really have to work towards the mechanics, but also for the armor dungeon and the weapon dungeon. I really enjoyed those mechanics here, and I think this is very interesting, and we definitely have to build different teams, like quite different teams, to farm the final stages here. And this once again is something that I really enjoy. But as always, this always depends a little bit. But then, this is now the game is hard and it is kind of complicated, which is something very positive for me. But then also, now let's talk about something negative, but also can the game feel quite tedious. Sometimes, as you can see, like the last 2 days, I've been farming quite a lot. And still I have so much resources left. So as it is right now, we have to farm for hours and hours on a daily basis. And especially to get something good. And this is definitely something that I have high hopes that they will change this for, at least for the early access, hopefully for the second beta round as well. But for the early access, I'm very confident that they will change this. Because for now, it is just too much grind. And it is not only the grind, but it is also the creation of food heroes. Leveling up your heroes is also extremely tedious. But I'm very confident that they will change this and that they will implement some ways to make this way faster. But for now, this is definitely something that it was just way too much. And for everyone who just wanted to enjoy like a new gacha game with like 30 to 60 minutes playtime a day, then this is right now, at least the first round of the beta, not the right area, honestly. It was just so much clicking, so much grinding. Also something which is also quite negative, but probably is just what the beta, caused by the beta, is the fact that so many bugs are in the game. And so many different bugs. A lot of things are not shown properly, like for example, Isolde's heal, but also most of the revivers did not work, and many of them still don't work as intended. Then also, sometimes it feels like the number generation and the damage calculation is not working properly because there are some numbers, for example 2740, a number which so many different heroes from my team always dealt the exact same numbers of damage. So this also felt a bit weird. Then we have the crit rate from Machao, which was definitely bugged as well. Even if you had him with 90% crit rate, he still only critted for like 10% of the time. So yeah, but those are bugs, and this is what a beta is for. But definitely this is something that has to be changed because it is extremely depressing, and bugs like this can cost a big amount of the player base when the game is then in the early access. And it can cause a lot of frustration. I can absolutely understand this. And there were definitely some moments where I was also extremely depressed, especially when I invested resources, especially early on, in my revivers, and then they just didn't revive. So stuff like this is definitely something can be very disappointing. And then one final thing is about the graphics, one final negative thing. Now, I have to admit that I think it is, yeah, my graphic quality was at low right now, because I just had it work and had it run some dungeon battles in the background while I was outside in the garden. And I thought that maybe if I reset it to low, set the graphics to low, then maybe it works a bit faster, but it makes no difference. However, right now, just the graphics, some of them look already quite decent, but a lot of skills feel still very clunky. Some heroes just look very equal to each other, and some heroes just don't have that much, have nothing special bring with them. And this is not only my personal feedback, but also feedback that I gathered from you guys, that I gathered from Reddit. And also one thing just to talk real quick when it comes to Reddit, especially when it comes to Reddit. There was so much negative feedback on Reddit, it was absolutely unbelievable. And there is just one thing that I want to admit real quick. While this game was so often compared to Raid, and I can absolutely understand why, there are a lot of equalities to Raid, like there's so many things that are definitely inspired by Raid. However, Raid is a relatively good game, honestly. But what makes Raid Shadow Legends such a bad experience for thousands of people is the fact that Raid is guided by Plarium. And Plarium is a hell of a company. They are so greedy, and I am playing Raid Shadow Legends since 2019. Of course with some breaks here and there, but I can tell you, and this is not something I want to talk about in this video, but man, Plarium did so many things that are just absolutely unacceptable, honestly. And this is where I have the high hopes, very, very high hopes. I think that the team of Godforge is just something absolute 100% different. And what I can already tell you for sure is that in the last 2 weeks, but also the week before, I had a lot of contact with a lot of different content creators, with community managers, and it always felt very, very positive. They were extremely supportive and very honest with everything. Also, they motivated us to make this feedback video, and they also, and this is something that I highly appreciate, they motivated us to be very honest with our thoughts. Not to say that the game is good or something, if you don't really believe that it is good. They just want our very honest feedback. And this is something that I really have to admit, this is extremely positive and makes the company already 100 times better than Plarium will ever be. If you ever played Raid, or you used to play Raid, if you just know something about Raid Shadow Legends or about Plarium, then you know that the company is so greedy, it is absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, when it comes to the graphics, there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. Like for example, you can see here, perfect timing, you can see here that yes, sometimes some things just feel a bit clunky, but I'm quite sure that I read this now a couple of times already on the official Discord, that they are still improving the graphics and they will also still increase the graphics. So we can stay tuned. This is definitely not the final version of the game. But yeah, that's it pretty much. Now my final feedback, like my final thoughts about the abilities, I already talked about them a bit. And in general, I think most of the heroes feel very cool and feel very different. But then there is the ultimate system, where I'm not still entirely sure if I really like this or not. Because sometimes you just have access to the abilities, to the ultimate ability, to the wrong time. So you have to sometimes manual, and to improve this, to improve in general just the ultimate abilities, it would really, really help if we just have access to some AI settings for our team. Also, I have high hopes that we get something to just set up our team, to explain to our heroes when we want them to use their ultimate. But we will see. This is also something that we will see just for future content. But I have high hopes, because otherwise it just feels so bad sometimes if there is only one enemy missing with like 10% HP, and then your two supports use their ultimates, and then your main damage dealer also uses his ultimate to finish off this final enemy. And then when you are at the last wave of the round, then you have nothing left and you have to recycle your ultimates again. So this is something that can be quite annoying, and I have high hopes that they will change this. But also, this is just the faith system in general, and the fact that we have those ultimates is something that I like quite a lot. So in Raid, for example, and other gacha games, also, for example, Summoner's War, you mainly focus on speed. Or not mainly focus, but speed definitely is one of the most important stats. While here, I can definitely see that later on there are some heroes where speed is more of a secondary thing, and we want to focus on faith. Depends a bit on your team and on your heroes. So it just adds a bit more depth. And depth is something that I love when it comes to games, whatever game we talk about, but especially when it comes to gacha games. I really enjoy any kind of depth, and I think that the fact that we have faith and those ultimate skills where we have not always access to, provide the game with so much additional complexity, which I so much enjoy. And also my final point is the awakening system. I can see that, especially for the legendary heroes, this can be quite a big thing, like quite a problematic thing, where we will have a big difference, a big gap between free-to-plays, low spenders, and the big spenders like the whales. But on the other hand, especially since we can also awaken our rare heroes already, I really enjoy the awakening system as well. Because once again, it just changes the hero by quite a lot, and especially the 5th awakening often is very, very impactful and just opens up a new page for your hero. So the awakening system is also something that I quite enjoy. But yeah, I'm already talking way too long, definitely more than 20 minutes already into this video. And well, there is some theories, so much more to add, but I don't want this video to take too long. And there is so much feedback also from you, which I just shown within this video here and there. I gave some suggestions from my perspective what I would change, and I really hope that this was kind of helpful for the devs. it was kind of interesting for you. And to repeat this just one more time, if you want to give any additional feedback, if you disagree with something, or if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. Please share your thoughts. But well, that's it for today. Thank you very, very much for stopping by, and see you in the next one, because yes, I have a couple of videos still in the pipeline, which I will release in the next couple of days, even though then the Godforge beta is no longer accessible. That's it. Thanks for stopping by, and see you in the next one.